Can you imagine a life with no more self-doubt, no more negative talk or judgment? Having passion and purpose every day of your life? Come join us. This is The Defining Path. Welcome back to another installment in The Defining Path. Today we're going to talk about the bucket list. We all have one thing in common. At some point, you, me, every human being is going to kick the bucket. No one can really say how or when it will happen, but it'll happen to everyone. Most of us don't really think it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen until it does. My time, your time, could come any day, probably when we least expect it. It's likely not going to be convenient, wanted, and there'll be tons of stuff we haven't done yet we intended to do, wanted to do, but we just never got around to it. That brings me to the other thing we all have in common. I bet you have some kind of a bucket list full of experiences you want to have, places you want to visit, things you want to do, right? Consider two different scenarios. The first is when your time comes to kick the bucket, you do a quick inventory and determine there's tons of things on your bucket list you've never achieved, never pursued, never got around to. You're going to just have to leave that bucket list because your time is up. How do you feel about that? The other scenario is when you do the inventory, your bucket list is empty. You've checked off everything on your list. You have said what you have to say. You've tried what you wanted to try. You've gone where you wanted to go. Now how do you feel about your time being up? I'll guess you feel a lot better than the first scenario. Think of it like this. Would you ever go into a grocery store with a list and only come out with one or two items? Don't waste your life leaving your bucket list full. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 90. Make a plan right now. Make a commitment. Start a routine to take things off your bucket list every day, every week, every year until it's empty. Live the life of abundance that was meant for you. For now, let's leave it here and make sure you're on the path that leads you to your best life.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and tune in next week for the next installment of The Defining Path.